Hi, it's Jordan, and in this video I want to say a few words about masculinity and feeling enough. Super important topics for all of us men. I got up this morning and received a number of messages on my phone from one of my high-performing clients. This is a man who's given everything to improving his dating and his intimacy life over the last few months. And he reported coming back from a date last night, date with a gorgeous, beautiful woman. But the way he showed up on that date and the way it didn't quite work out left him kind of in the back of the taxi feeling this awful feeling of having screwed up and having not been, in his words, masculine enough. And so I want to address this because it's vitally important. I think at some point all of us men are going to know the feeling of failure, and especially failure with the opposite sex. Like whether we're single and dating and we're looking to get into intimacy with a woman, or if we're in a relationship, failure is inevitable. And even being a few years into a relationship, there are times, 18 months in my case at time of recording of being in my relationship, there are still times where I show up and I feel subtly humiliated on the inside because I know that in some way I've failed my highest integrity or not lived up to my potential of who I am as a man. So failure is inevitable, and yet it still freaking hurts. And I know that a lot of men have this sense of not feeling masculine enough, and that really drives a lot of their thoughts, their feelings, their behavior, and their choices in life. So let's explore what it means. There's two main things I want to say about the topic. And the first thing is the pain of not feeling enough. So what does it mean? I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not masculine enough. I'm not attractive enough for that woman. There's the inner judgment and the inner kind of position of not feeling enough. Who is it on the inside that doesn't feel enough? And is it true, or is it just a part of us? Now, in my explorations of this, what we can say, or what I've come to see about the feeling of not being enough, is that it's just one of the inner parts of ourselves. And whether it's not feeling enough in work or not feeling masculine or attractive enough to the women of the world, it's just a part of me that gets triggered at a point in time. So I'm sure my client will wake up tomorrow morning or the next morning and not have any thoughts of not being enough or not being masculine enough anymore. His mind is going to be on something else. But yeah, there is an inner part of him, as there is an inner part of most of us, that doesn't feel quite enough. And so how can we alleviate the pain of that part? And that's where I look to the realm of psychology. I look to kind of inner child work, in a sense. Most of the time, these feelings of not being good enough or not being masculine enough, these kind of words are interchangeable here, but the not-enoughness stems from not being able to get what we want somehow in childhood because we feel like we're lacking. And so that gets repeated again and again as we try to connect with women or in other pursuits of our lives, that feeling of not being enough. And so when it comes up, what to do? Well, I think the first thing is to really, really realize that it is just a part of you. And it's a thought, it's a feeling, it's a part. Sure, it's a pretty ingrained and bunched together set of habits and beliefs that have been there since you were probably very young, that come back again and again. And yet it's not all of the reality. It's just something that can get triggered in particular moments of failure. And so when you kind of see that and make a bit of peace with that, then you can let those feelings go and they will just kind of disappear or transform. The more love and acceptance you can bring to those feelings, the less strong they'll keep coming up again and again in the future. It's that whole notion of what you resist persists, but what you can accept you get power over to change. The more acceptance you can bring to the part of you that doesn't feel enough, it loses its grip. So the essence of inner child work, if you've never done something like this, is basically you'll sit with a therapist, talk therapist, body worker, or in a sacred space for a little while, and you'll explore the thoughts and the feelings and the experiences and the stories of the child part of you that doesn't feel enough to be loved or to get what it needs in that moment in time. They'll take you on a process. You'll become aware of the emotions and thoughts. You'll be led in a way to start to welcome those thoughts, to accept them, and to even feel a little bit of love for those thoughts. And ultimately, your kind of takeaway task, which is, therapy session is not going to swipe the pain in 1 hour or in 2 sessions, but the ongoing practice is, when that part of you gets triggered, when you don't feel masculine enough, you realize that it's a young part of you, and just hold it with love, and just have love for the part of you that failed, that didn't convince that woman, that didn't have enough magnetism to get that one woman on that one particular day, in that one particular moment in time, with the infinite chance of possibilities that she's got her own world of stress and stuff going on over there as well. So you just hold that part of yourself, and you can love it, and so failure in this sense stops becoming so painful. You've got a resource, and this is one part of the meaning of self-love to me, which is, you're not going to linger in tumultuous thoughts of, I'm not enough, how do I fix myself, how do I get better, but like, oof, that rejection hurt, like it triggers all my not enoughness. Okay, I know that will pass. I can love that part of me again. Much different, and different quality of inner relationship that you cultivate with yourself. So very, very important work. The problematic thing is that if you don't relate to this part of you that feels not enough in that kind of compassionate way, if you resist your not enoughness, we all have not enoughness in some way, shape or form, if you keep resisting that part of you, then the mind goes into strategies to try and make yourself enough, which means I'm going to do the coaching, I'm going to, get up every day, I'm going to like force, and try and change myself into somebody that I'm not, as a way to overcompensate and to start feeling enough. And it's funny that, this guy, we're talking in the context of his dating life, a lot of the known ladies' men of the world are men who are absolutely fueled by this sense of not enoughness, and so they learn all the ways of interacting, all of the techniques, all of the manipulation, all of the different things that they can do to become these consummate ladies' men, and they can sleep with tens or hundreds or even thousands of women, and yet as soon as a woman comes along who they like, who rejects them, it triggers off all the internal pain all over again. And if they're predisposed to fall into this feeling pattern of not being man enough, they will get hung up and they will get hurt on the failures, and a big part of them won't enjoy fully the kind of success that they're having along the way. And so, you ask yourself, what's worth more of my time and investment, to build the skills to become better at dating, or to learn how to just be less hurt and less affected and suffer less when part of me gets triggered? Both have their merits. So let's talk about the second side of this, which is masculinity. So the title of the video, Not Masculine Enough, we talked about the notion of not being enough and what that means and what we can do about it. What about the masculine side of things? And this is really, really vital to understand, because understanding masculinity, what masculinity really is, can save us from a hell of a lot of struggles and pain. And ultimately, of course, if we're in this feeling of masculinity, then no feeling of not enoughness can possibly arise. It just doesn't exist. So let's define terms. First of all, what is masculinity? And in my mind, I like the kind of spiritual tantric perception of this, where masculinity basically means empty consciousness. It is the kind of blank space onto which all life happens. So it might take you a little while to grasp what this means. Months, years, I'm talking about. But the state of pure masculinity, the way I understand and teach it, is that there's part of our mind that is untouched. You've probably had some peak moments of this in your life where whatever you were thinking, whatever you were feeling, it fundamentally did not matter, because you came to a state of fundamental inner peace, and you were good. You know, despite the circumstances of your life, you were good. And it's funny, you know, in all my travels, I've seen a lot of people work jobs that they hate, and I worked a job that I hated, and yet there were days where I felt absolutely free in my mind and happy for no reason. None of my circumstances affected how I felt. And yet I would go and live on the beach in Mexico or whatever and find lots of reasons to suffer about. And so there's that state of, regardless of what's going on, we're good. We're kind of empty. There's nothing that can affect us. This is the sense of masculinity I'm talking about. There's a lot of cultural beliefs, a lot of, you know, very ingrained beliefs that we have that see masculine men as these kind of thrusting, penetrating, hard, muscular, strong, like I kick butt and take names later type guys. This is a kind of manifest form of masculinity, but what I'm talking about here is that the masculine means to be in that calm state of meditation, to be absolutely, not just as a thought that you're trying to fool yourself with, but genuinely and authentically unattached to the outcome. Like you don't care because you're fundamentally good. When you're in that state, whatever happens on any date, with any woman, in any relationship, with any drama, nothing can possibly touch you. You might feel some of that anger, you might feel some annoyance, you might feel, you know, tears and be touched and compassion. You might feel that stuff, but none of that can possibly tell you anything about who you are or have any kind of life-defining stamp or impact on you, because you're empty enough, you're solid enough, you're imperturbable, and you don't get moved, you don't get put off course. And so if you're in the back of a taxi and you try to kiss your girl and she leaves and says, it was a nice date, you were wonderful, but you know, here it kind of ends, rather than taking that taxi back to your house feeling low, beating yourself up for not being masculine enough, you can, you know, maybe the failure will hurt a little bit, or you'll feel disappointed because it's not quite as beautiful the outcome as what you could have had, but it's fundamentally not going to trigger anything inside of you, because you're still good. And in this frame of mind, there's no possibility that you cannot be masculine enough, because you are pure masculinity, which is nothing. Now, some of you watching this are going to be like totally getting everything that I say. Others of you might probably think this is gobbledygook. So I'll try and make this a little bit more specific, draw a picture of it. When you're on a date, a lot of men have kind of armed themselves with a lot of different seductive and flirting skills. So you can say the right things, you can touch her in a really beautiful way, you can be grounded, you can be feeling your sexual energy, you can be full of sexual innuendo, you can be vulnerable, you can be saying, you know, the right thing at the right time, you can be this kind of consummate lover. But if you haven't got the part of you that is also just aware and unattached to the outcome, you're never going to be fully masculine. You might become this consummate kind of Casanova, but you're not going to have that extra bit, that extra ease or relaxation in the background. And so women pick up on this subtly. You become the kind of chaser, the seducer. She might like love it and open and fall for it and accept you. She might give you a little bit of kickback, but fundamentally you're in a situation where you're trying to flirt, you're trying to seduce, and she's gonna either like it or back away. When you're coming from a place of pure kind of emptiness and meditation, you're just upright like this. And so the energetic of how women respond to you changes massively. This cannot be understated. When you're not trying to employ some of your romantic or seductive skills or abilities to try and make it happen, you're just empty, loving the moment, steadfast. It opens up a lot more space, and what ends up usually happening is she starts to feel a lot more, and you have to do a lot less. And so the seductive dance, let's say, becomes very, very different from the classic, can I just show up well enough so that she will give me what I want? And it turns into this thing where she might do anything and you're totally unmoved, unperturbed. And it's the quality, the level of chemistry, the possibility of going somewhere transcendent together is completely different approaching it in this way. This can only happen when you're in that state of what I'm calling pure masculinity. When you've lost connection to the part of you that is empty, that is unattached to all outcome, the more you'll probably get hooked by your wants and your needs and your desires of the moment. And that can be fine. You can be a great lover doing that, and yet you will likely suffer setbacks and triggers for not being enough, and there will be doors closed in your face and pain will get thrown in your nose, and you'll have to deal with that. So my ultimate recommendation is probably not a popular or an easy one to my high performing client, is that he's got to the level in his dating game now where it's like he's very good at it. Women are falling over themselves to be with him. He really has an alive dating life and a fantastic array of skills and techniques. And yet the next piece for him to overcome that pain of not feeling enough and to ignite a kind of polarity which is beyond the conventional I'm going to seduce you thing, and starts really getting her to having her feel more impacted and want to participate more into the romance with him, is for him to find this part of his masculinity which is enough. Therapeutically, to be able to hold the little boy in him that gets triggered when there is failure and he comes into the old story that's not going to go away, that's going to be there for life. Even with the best therapy in the world, you could still be feeling that into your 60s and 70s. Like, wow, part of me just gets triggered again and again in this situation and suffers it. He can learn how to love that part when it happens, but two, find in himself that place of masculinity in which there cannot be any not-enoughness, because it is just content with the moment. And for that I suggest meditation. It's a long journey, but the benefits pay out better than anything you could ever possibly imagine. It's the the compound interest of the spiritual world. And if you want to know more about how to meditate or how to start off a good habit, check out my video called How I Meditate, and we'll go into that further there. Hope you've enjoyed the video for today. Let me know if this is connected with you somehow in the comments below. I'll get back to you. And if you want to get more of this kind of content and more of this kind of nuanced discussion around dating, intimacy, sex, attraction, and the psychology and the spirituality about it, then make sure to subscribe to my channel, and I'll be putting videos a little bit like this out every week or so. All right, thanks for watching. I'm Jordan. Talk soon.